Chapter 1. The first things need to be thoroughly understood by the lay followers of Buddhism. The causing conditions for a person to meet and follow Buddhism. A person who has sufficient causing conditions to read Buddhist canons finds the truth of the moral path very practical and concrete. It teaches people how to live a moral life, to practice and cultivate the mind and body to overcome the ups and downs and sufferings of human life by their own self-reliant power. Particularly the ability to control their life and death at will and put an end to rebirth. So when you start to follow Buddhism to become a true disciple, you need to thoroughly understand what is true and what is not true in Buddhism. You need to be judicious to accept what is right and eliminate what is wrong of Buddhism. And finally, you need to respect what is truly Buddhist and disrespect what is not truly Buddhist. Nowadays the majority of Buddhist followers do not honor and respect the right method of Buddhism. Instead they often honor the expanded teaching methods of some sects and keep practicing these methods of abstraction and superstition even though such practice leads to no good result. If a person bravely states that the expanded teaching methods of these sects are not the teachings of the Buddha but the superstitious method of heretical Brahmanism, they will become furious and oppose the person in all different ways. They sometimes use insulting and abusive words in a die-hard and ferocious manner. A person who had not known or understood Buddhism, one day had the chance to read a Buddhist canon like the case of one Buddhist follower who told us, "I had never known Buddhism when one day a friend gave me the Surangam Sutta. Thanks to reading this sutta, I understood the essence of Buddhism. It was so wonderful, so great." Since then, I have paid attention to Buddhism and gone to pagodas to listen to lectures and bought more Buddhist canons to study the Buddhist guideline and methods for practice. The more I read Buddhist canons, the more I want to go to practice. These are people who have the causing conditions to read such canons as the Sutta of Heroic One, the Sutta of the Diamond Cutter, the Lotus Sutta, General Buddhist Study, and all the Agamas or the Nikayas. By contrast, people who have not had enough causing conditions to read Buddhist canons, have not understood Buddhism will see Buddhism as a superstitious religion and the Buddha as a deity who supports and bestows fortune on the world. At present, most people understand Buddhism through 4 different sects. 1. Sukhavati sect, which turns Buddhism into a superstitious religion with worship, praying, reciting Buddha's name to gain rebirth to the Pure Land like Brahmanism. 2. Zenism, which turns Buddhism into Taoism. 3. Dharmalaksana sect, which turns Buddhism into a faculty of psychology. 4. Mandrayana, which turns Buddhism into a sacred and mysterious religion. In fact, Buddhism is not psychology, not the metaphysical realm, not the substance of all beings, also not sacred supremacy. People who follow Buddhism live a normal life like other people, but they have abandoned desire and of illness in their minds. Any person who understands correctly and knows how to live to abandon desire and of illness will have a mind of peace, bliss and carefreeness. Such person is the one who has enough good fortune to know and follow the right method of Buddhism. Otherwise, people either do not have enough good fortune to know and follow the right method of Buddhism, or meet wrong method, or follow the wrong method like the above-mentioned Buddhist follower. Not to have enough good fortune to meet the right method of Buddhism is better than to have enough causing conditions to meet the wrong method of heresy. Knowing the wrong method of heresy will result in attachment to the wrong view which is very difficult to let go. Human beings are innately ignorant, therefore they easily believe any method they meet. Blind faith leads to attachment to wrong method. Even though people may know that it is not the right method of Buddhism, they still cannot let go of it. Therefore, in this world there are many religions and each religion has its followers. Particularly religions with miracle powers attract people more easily. As such, more and more people follow religions with miracle power, resembling ants crawling all over a piece of sugar. There's hardly anyone who is not attracted by miracle power, but miracle power is only a kind of power of imagination. It is the illusion to deceive people. The true followers of Buddhism. Due to the superficial understanding of Buddhism, Buddhist followers can be classified into 5 categories. 1. The followers who go to pagodas to worship, wish for peace, perform requiem, resort to sortilege, cast lots, check the good or bad days, worship stars, relieve one's run of bad luck, etc. 2. The followers who go to pagodas to make offerings to the monks, to listen to the monks expounding the suttas or lecturing on canons to learn about Buddhism. These people have knowledge but lack careful consideration, easily believe whatever they listen to. Without knowing if it is the right or wrong Buddhist method, as long as it sounds reasonable, they will follow to practice. Therefore, this results in attachment to wrong view and argument. 3. The followers who go to pagoda but rarely make offerings to the monks, rarely worship the Buddha, rarely make ceremonial offerings. They only listen to the lectures of canons and learn them by heart. They acquire many types of canons studied and compiled by the scholars which they consider as standard. They also make further interpretation based on their own opinions. After that they look for the practitioners to argue to humiliate them and consider themselves as the masters who have thorough understanding of the religion. Sometimes, they behave as if they had attained full enlightenment. 4. The followers who go to pagodas but do not worship and make ceremonial offerings to the Buddha, not make offerings to the monks, not listen to lectures of canons. They only establish contacts for business. 5. The followers who go to pagodas to worship and make ceremonial offerings to the Buddha, make offerings to the monks. Listen to the lectures of canons to learn and consider which method is right, which method is wrong to finally choose the right method of Buddhism to practice. Amongst the 5 categories of Buddhist followers, only those of the 5th category are the genuine and devout Buddhist followers. They seriously follow the teachings of the Buddha. Those of other 4 categories are devotees who do not understand Buddhism and are affected by wrong teachings of heresy and thus make Buddhism decline. The decadence of Buddhism is due to the followers of these 4 categories, particularly the superstitious ones. It does not matter if a person is not a Buddhist disciple, however, once the person is a disciple of the Buddha, she should have the judiciousness to protect Buddhism and prevent the heresy from invading Buddhism. However, these 4 categories are in the opposite direction. They are Buddhist disciples but lend a hand to heresy to destroy Buddhism. It's heartbreaking. Dear all, isn't it that you are now practicing and praising the method of heresy? You go to pagodas to worship, to perform requiem, to wish for peace, to worship stars to relieve your run of bad luck, to check good or bad days, etc. Are such deeds in accordance with the teachings of the Buddha? Every day you sit in meditation and recite the Buddha's name. Have you attained any result for liberation? Have your minds got rid of greed, anger and ignorance? Or you only sit in lotus position for 3 or 4 hours? Do you consider this the result? These teachings and methods have turned you into pious sheep. Do you know that? These teachings and methods have turned Buddhism into heresy of superstition and backwardness, which is non-scientific and illogical. Do you believe our words? They are obvious truth. Please ponder upon this. The enlightened teacher of Buddhism. People who do not have enough good fortune to meet Buddhist method follow the ups and downs of the flow of worldly sensual pleasures with endless sufferings from one life to another. Similar to an ant crawling round the mouth of a jar. For people who do not have enough good fortune to meet Buddhist method but meet wrong methods, the more they practice the more they become arrogant. They often deceive others for fame and wealth. Carry out many evil deeds. It is such a waste of a lifetime of practice. People who have enough good fortune to meet Buddhist method but do not meet the enlightened teacher do not thoroughly understand the essence of Buddhism. They practice by following the interpretation of scholars, similar to an animal chewing a bone. It does not want to let go of the bone, but also does not gain anything from chewing again. For people who have enough good fortune to meet Buddhist method and are determined to follow Buddhism to practice with a wish to escape from the worldly sufferings, but meet the extended heretical canons compiled by the scholars, they practice to such an extent of the half-dead without any result. Their ascetic life is not as it should be, and so is their secular life. To have a clear view of the Buddhist monks' nuns at present, they can be in 6 categories as below. 1. Bhikkhus who regularly perform worship and ceremonial offerings, singing panegyrics, chanting verses. These bhikkhus have little training of doctrine. Pagodas are their places for living as a family. They have wives, children, they do all the jobs like a secular family such as farming, tilling the fields, raising pigs, chicken, goats, cows etc. When people invite them to come to their houses to do worshipping, reciting and chanting, performing requiem, wishing for peace, they will do with clear prices. 2. Bhikkhus who regularly perform worshipping and ceremonial offerings, reciting and chanting, requiem, wishing for peace, organizing ceremonies, organizing pilgrimages, organizing charity programs etc. These bhikkhus do not have wives or children, they have education and knowledge of doctrine. They do not take payments for reciting and chanting at funerals and only receive offerings for the 4 necessaries etc. Their pagodas are the places for activities of superstitious Buddhist followers all day long. 3. Bhikkhus who regularly study doctrinal system, do the work for the Buddhist congregation, teach and expound canons, do the translation work, compile and write books. These bhikkhus have high education and profound Buddhist knowledge but do not have practice. They are in the rank of leaders in the Buddhist congregation. 4. Bhikkhus who both practice and lecture on canons of Zennism, Mandrayana, and Sukhavati based on their own interpretation and opinions for followers. These bhikkhus follow the Bodhisattva path and practice the Bodhisattva conduct. The above 4 categories of bhikkhus belong to the northern school of Mahayana. 5. Bhikkhus who regularly eat the meat of living beings. They are the monks of the southern school. They follow the original canons but are influenced by the interpretations and opinions of the scholars with postgraduate education. They often break the precepts and live not in accordance with the standard conducts and virtues. And therefore they wrongly understand the teachings of the Buddha to become evil knowledgeable friend advisor and lose the seeds of love and compassion, deviating from the seeds of right method. They often make argument to eat the meat of living beings, eat without seeing, without hearing, without suspecting. 6. Bhikkhus who build huts or tiny accommodations to practice on their own. They are the passive and pessimistic practitioners who only look for the peace for themselves. They think such way of practice is liberation, but they do not know that it is the act of evading life to follow the desire of a quiet and peaceful life. With the above 6 categories of bhikkhus. If you choose the first category as your teacher, you are following the Buddhism of officiating ceremonies, which is superstitious and influenced by the folk custom and practice. The majority of these bhikkhus break and violate the precepts. They never live in accordance with the standard virtues and conducts. These monks are considered as shaved-headed lay followers. If you choose the second category as your teacher, you are following the Buddhism of Brahmanism and practice to gain the fortune of this worldly life. If you choose the third category as your teacher, you are following the Buddhism of fame and wealth. If you choose the fourth category as your teacher, you are following the Buddhism of Zennism, Mandrayana, and Sukhavati. These methods are similar to those who chew metal balls, with which they could not swallow but do not release. If you choose the fifth category as your teacher, you are following the Buddhism of the Southern School and become evil knowledgeable friend advisor, losing the mind of love and compassion, and staying away from the path of liberation. If you choose the sixth category as your teacher, you are following the Buddhism which is passive, pessimistic and evading life. Their life of practice does not lead to any result. They do make efforts, but their efforts do not bring any benefit. In Buddhism there are such 6 categories of bhikkhus. If you do not accept to choose them as your teacher, so who would you consider as your teacher? We would like to introduce the enlightened teacher of Buddhism so that you do not have to search for long and will not be deceived by heretical monks. The enlightened teacher is the method and precepts of the Buddha. In the past, the Buddha also relied on these method and precepts to accomplish his practice and attained the full enlightenment. Therefore, when he completed his practice, he knelt down and kowtowed to the Dhamma and considered it as his teacher. When he was about to enter Nibbana, he made his testament, "After my entering Nibbana, you the bhikkhus consider my method and precepts as your teacher, as your steady support for practice." We also would like to introduce the canons of Buddhism so that you would not be mistaken. 1. The 4 Agamas. 2. The 5 Nikayas. Even though the 4 Agamas and the 5 Nikayas are the original canons of Buddhism, but within these canons, the patriarchs have made considerable alterations, particularly in the Agamas. Their translation has changed the meaning of the teachings of the Buddha, and they even wrote the suttas to connect Theravada and Mahayana. As such, when studying these canons, you the Buddhist followers should not completely believe in these canons. Instead you should remember the teachings of the Buddha. Kalamas. 1. You should not believe oral traditions. 2. You should not believe inherited tradition. 3. You should not believe rumor. 4. You should not believe the authority of scripture. 5. You should not believe metaphysical reasoning. 6. You should not believe an axiom inference. 7. You should not believe specious reasoning. 8. You should not believe a bias towards a notion that has been pondered over by you. 9. You should not believe someone's apparent competence. 10. You should not take belief because the ascetic is your teacher. Kalamas, when you yourselves know that something is unwholesome, culpable and criticized by the wise, that something, when taken up and carried through, leads to harm and pain. Then, Kalamas, you should give it up. The above teachings of the Buddha are the reminder and warning for his disciples that they should not take hasty belief, so that they would not be deceived by heretical methods under the name of Buddhism. With the lessons drawn from these teachings, when starting to follow religions, we need to be more cautious and careful. Should not have blind faith and have to choose the right method that teaches the moral foundation for us to become true humans and holy ones. As the moral foundation to become true humans and holy ones will help us not to create sufferings to ourselves, to others and to all living beings. Buddhism is a self-reliant religion. If a person wants to follow the genuine path of practice of Buddhism, she has to understand clearly that the life of a human being from birth to death is full of sufferings. The sufferings are true. One suffers because the mind and body are full of sorrows due to greed, anger and ignorance, and because people related to one have different thoughts. Because of troublesome circumstances as well as ups and downs, because of hardship for livelihood. Only when we have this right view and know that sufferings as such, dare we choose the Buddhist path of practice. Otherwise, if the person does not see the sufferings of life are true and still see that the life has happiness, peace and pleasures, she should not choose the practice path of Buddhism. Why so? Because the way of practice of Buddhism is a path of opposite direction from that of human life. Moreover, the Buddhist practice is a way in which practitioners have to use their own power. Always have to cultivate the minds and bodies and practice at their best to let go of the thoughts which are full of desires and of illness covering their minds. In order to do such let go, practitioners have to be dauntless, dogged, perseverant, enduring, patient etc. and also must have sufficient fortitude to bravely break with the vice and bad habits instead of going to Buddhist shrine to kowtow, beseeching and asking for the power of the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas to support and help to save them from accidents, sorrows, mishaps, diseases etc. or emit rays of light to welcome and escort the souls of the dead to the Pure Land. The practice is also not by chanting suttas, reciting the Buddha's name, reciting mantras, sitting in meditation, practicing incantation and amulet etc. or by wishing to gain rebirth to the Pure Land. Nibbana with the power and authority of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. In order to follow Buddha's practice to escape the sufferings of human life, one has to use his or her own power instead of other power as taught in the expanded canons of heresy. Reading the original canons, we see that the Buddha taught us to practice with self-reliant methods. There is no teaching for practicing with other power. Only the expanded canons of heresy taught practicing with other power. A person, when listening to this part, asked us, in original canons, the Buddha taught us the four objects of unfailing purity. Is the method of the four objects of unfailing purity not to name the Buddha's name, the Dhamma, the Sangha, the precepts? Dear Buddhist followers, the Buddha taught us Nim. The Buddha means to live like the Buddha instead of repeating or chanting the Buddha's name. Nim. The Dhamma means to live in accordance with the Dhamma, practice in accordance with the Dhamma instead of chanting suttas. Nim. The Sangha means to live in harmony like the monks without conflicts instead of making offerings or kowtowing to the monks to gain fortune. Nim. The precepts means to live in accordance with the standard conducts and virtues without even a minor error instead of people together chanting the precepts every lunar calendar 15th and 30th. Reading the teaching of Nim, the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, the precepts. The scholars based themselves on the words to interpret with their own opinions and considered Nim as to repeat the name of a Buddha inaudibly in the mind, like in this. Namo the original teacher Shakyamuni Buddha, or Namo the worthy of worship one, the fully enlightened one, the one with perfect knowledge and good conduct, the well-departed one, the knower of the world, the peerless nobleman, the master who tames and controls the passions of humans, the unequaled teacher of humans and heavenly beings, the enlightened one, the world's honored one. Such kind of reciting does not have any meaning and results in no liberation. Here, the Buddha taught us Nim means to contemplate the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, the precepts so that we thoroughly understand how the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, and the precepts imply the liberation, so that we accordingly follow to live and practice like the Buddha, in accordance with the Dhamma, like the Sangha, and in accordance with the precepts. With such understanding and practice, you will have true liberation, while people recite the Buddha's name, chant suttas, offer food and kowtow to the monks, and chant the precepts. With such way of Nim, the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, the precepts, even for innumerable lives they will have no liberation. People have been wrong. They think such repeating or reciting are to make the mind become one mind unconfused. That is no unintended thought to occur and only the repeating of Buddha's name, and by that, they will gain rebirth to the Pure Land. This is according to Sukhavati sect, 7 days with one mind unconfused, when the person approaches the end of life. Amitabha Buddha and all the assembly of holy ones will appear before him to guide. But according to Zennism, one mind unconfused means the mind without both good thoughts and bad thoughts. The mind without both good thoughts and bad thoughts is concentration and the Buddha nature. However, all such practice is wrong. Your one mind unconfused will make you fall into the world of the khandha of imagination. This is the labyrinth of heresy. In your practice you have to be watchful against this dangerous place. If your practice leads you to this place, you could have nerve disorder and put your life at risk. You would become crazy and lose your mind. For a newcomer of Buddhism, it is confusing with a huge number of canons of expanded Buddhism. Reading some canons, people will see that in these canons all the practice relies on other power in the path to liberation, for example the Sutta of Infinite Light, the Amitabha Sutta, the Returning to One's Origin Sutta, the Lotus Sutta, etc. Such canons make the practitioners disheartened and lose their fortitude. They turn Buddhism into a religion of other power, and a religion of superstition that makes practitioners of next generations rely on others. Due to this wrong practice, no one could attain full enlightenment in Buddhism. They argue that newcomers in practice have to recite suttas, bowing in repentance, repeating the Buddha's name, kowtowing to the Buddha's great names, beseeching other power. And practitioners with longer time in practice have to be self-reliant to sit in concentration by contemplating the breath. Practitioners with such way of understanding do not understand Buddhism at all. It is the understanding of the expanded Buddhism. For people starting practice, like the lay followers at the first step in Buddhism, the Buddha taught the first lesson of self-reliance, of giving up the 6 evil occupations that they were doing for livelihood. It means if we want to follow Buddhism to practice, we have to change from evil occupation to good occupation. From the Sutta of giving up the 6 evil occupations, we clearly see the self-reliance of Buddhism starting at the very step. At the first step following Buddhism, we have this teaching. Thoroughly understand what need to be thoroughly understood, renounce what need to be renounced, practice what need to be practiced, cultivate the mind and body with what need to be cultivated. These could not be done by beseeching other power. Buddhism is a religion which is established on the foundation of goodness. All of illness must be eliminated. Thanks to eliminating the of illness and developing the goodness, one has peaceful and happy life and liberation for oneself and for others. In order to eliminate the evilness, only self-reliance can do it. Other power cannot help. We have to get rid of our own evil deeds by ourselves and cannot ask others to do it for us. For example, if you go stealing or burgling, can you ask others to help you not to steal or burgle? No, you cannot. You yourself have to know that it's an evil deed that brings misery to others and thus you give up. Similarly, for the 6 evil occupations, you cannot ask the Buddhas to get rid of them for you. You yourself have to give up and stop these occupations. From this, we clearly understand that Buddhism is a self-reliant path. The canons of other power are not the Buddhist canons. Buddhism sees the life with the eye of cause and effect, and only self-reliance can deal with causality by giving up evil deeds. Even if there is an Almighty, the Almighty also cannot help us with this. Therefore, Buddhism is a religion which is non-religious. A religion without an Almighty as Savior, a religion where human beings save themselves by their self-reliant power. As such, Buddhism is also called the path of living alone, walking alone, and doing alone. Buddhism is also called the moral foundation, which is based on the causality law and considers humans as its center for development so that people will live without creating sufferings to themselves, to others and to all living beings.